Don't say anything. Just eat the cake. That's what she whispered as she slid the plate in front of me, her hand trembling just enough to notice. The candle flickered once and went out. No singing. No smile. The frosting said happy birthday, but the knife beside it still had peanut butter on it. That's when I knew something was wrong. No, not wrong. Broken. I hadn't even opened my mouth. Hadn't said a word. I was still trying to figure out why her eyes were red. Why her makeup looked smeared only under one eye. Why she smelled like peppermint mouthwash at 8:23 p.m. when we'd run out yesterday. So I didn't say anything. I did exactly what she told me. I ate the cake. Bitter. Dry. Too much salt in the base. She watched me like I was a stranger. Arms crossed. Like I'd show some kind of signal. A blink, a pause, a flinch, and she could react. But I didn't. Because I didn't understand what the hell was going on. Only when I reached for my fork again did she snap. Just one word. Enough. I looked up. She looked down. Then she said it. God, Milo, you're so predictable. Do you ever think for yourself? There it was. Not even midnight yet. And I was already bleeding inside. It was a sentence she'd probably rehearsed 100 times in her head. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. I thought she was done. Maybe she'd storm off, or cry, or toss something. But instead, she stared at the wall behind me like it was safer than my eyes. Then she muttered it. Almost too quiet. Why couldn't it have been him instead of you? My vision blurred instantly. I don't even remember how I stood up. My legs just moved. Wait, 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 wait. She stammered, stepping toward me. I didn't mean it like that. Milo, listen, please. I love you, okay? It's just, no. That moment I knew something had happened before I walked in. That someone had left. Or she had. And I was the one she came back to, not the one she wanted to stay with. I left the cake half-eaten, the candle stub still smoking. That night, I didn't sleep. That night, I listened to the hallway floorboards creak at 2:17 a.m. That night, I turned on her old phone, the one she forgot she left in the bottom drawer 3 months ago. And by 2:31 a.m., I saw what she meant when she said him. The screen was cracked, and the battery was almost dead, but her old phone still turned on. Maybe I expected it to be wiped clean, like some ancient relic she never thought I'd find again. But she'd only disabled notifications, not deleted the truth. No passcode. Same lock screen. Us on the boardwalk 2 summers ago, back when she still held my hand without needing a reason. I tapped into the messages, not even sure what I was looking for. Part of me was hoping I wouldn't find anything, that I was overreacting, that her cruel words were just words. But the first name that popped up wasn't one I recognized. Jonas. Not John. Not someone from her office. Not someone she ever mentioned at brunch with her mom. Not someone I'd ever seen in our world. Just Jonas. I opened the thread, and my stomach twisted before I even read a word. It wasn't the messages that killed me first. It was the timestamps. Tuesday, 11:42 p.m. Wednesday, 1:06 a.m. Friday, 4:17 a.m. Saturday, 6:51 a.m. Sunday, 3:13 a.m. All of them in the early morning. All of them while I was asleep, just one room away. The most recent one, the one she must have read before sliding that pathetic slice of cake in front of me, was still open. Jonas, you didn't have to go back to him. We could have just stayed. And the worst part? No response from her. Because she didn't have to write one. She had already answered him by coming home. To me. To the man she couldn't even look at during dinner. My throat went dry. I read more. I shouldn't have. Jonas, you looked like you meant it when you said you loved me. Was that a lie too? Jonas, he doesn't see it. He never will. He thinks if he just makes coffee and remembers anniversaries, that's love. I stopped reading. I dropped the phone on the floor. Hard. Not enough to break it. Just enough to hear it thud and remind me I was awake. That this wasn't some fever dream. At 2:48 a.m., I sat on the cold bathroom floor and stared at my own reflection under fluorescent light, wondering what made me so easy to leave, but harder to tell. Was it my silence? My kindness? The way I always said, it's fine, even when it wasn't? Or was I just a placeholder? A warm body in a cold apartment while she waited for someone braver? She came into the room around 3:30. I heard her soft footsteps. She stood in the hallway for a full minute before she spoke. Milo, you okay? I didn't answer. She pushed the door open halfway. I didn't look at her. Talk to me, she whispered. I finally turned my head. Slowly. Carefully. Like every muscle was made of glass. And I said it. You didn't delete the messages. She didn't flinch. She didn't lie. She just stepped back like I'd slapped her. Her lips parted. Then closed again. I watched her shoulders drop. Watched her body physically give up. Milo, she started. But I'd heard enough. I stood up and walked past her. Not a word. Not a glance. And still, behind me, in that same voice she used on my birthday, she begged. I didn't mean it like that. I love you. But that sentence was broken now. And I was starting to realize. So was everything else. I didn't leave that night. Maybe I should have. Maybe a stronger man would have walked out the door, left the keys, and never looked back. But I'm not built like that. I stay. I wait. I hope. Even when I know better. The next morning, I acted like nothing happened. She did too. That was our thing. We avoided hard truths like rotting food in the fridge. We knew it was there, stinking up everything, but no one wanted to open the door and deal with it. I made coffee. She took it with too much sugar, like always. I buttered toast. She scrolled her phone with that same hollow stare. No good morning. No, I'm sorry. Just silence. Again. Around noon, she finally broke it. I know you looked, she said. Her voice was calm. Dangerous, even. I didn't answer. She continued. If you want to hate me, hate me. I deserve it. That part almost felt noble, if not for what she said next. But you don't get to twist it and make me the villain when you've been emotionally checked out for months. I blinked. What? You never notice me anymore, Milo. She snapped, arms crossed. You're always around, but you're never actually there. You think love is doing dishes and remembering dental appointments. But where the hell are you when I'm breaking apart? I stood there, stunned, as she rewrote the narrative in real time. You said I could talk to you, she added. But every time I tried, you looked at me like I was made of glass. That's because you were always ready to shatter, I said, barely above a whisper. She shook her head like I didn't get it. Like I was the one cheating, the one texting someone else at 4 a.m., the one who came home from someone else's bed and served dry birthday cake like that made it okay. And then, without warning, she started crying. I don't mean silent tears. I mean full body sobbing, like the guilt had finally sunk its claws in. But even in that moment, I couldn't tell if she was crying for me, or just for herself. I didn't sleep with him, she blurted. I swear to God, I didn't. That should have mattered. It didn't. Because she wanted to. Because she almost did. Because she told him she loved him. Because she called me exhausting on my birthday and told him I was clueless. And now she wanted credit for pulling back at the last second? I didn't cross the line, she insisted. I looked at her, and for the first time in 5 years, I genuinely didn't recognize the person in front of me. Then why were you so scared when I walked into the kitchen? She didn't answer, so I gave her the silence she'd given me for weeks. I walked into the bedroom and locked the door behind me. That night, I slept on the floor beside the dresser. Not because she kicked me out. Because I couldn't bear the idea of sharing a bed with someone who could shatter me with a whisper and still call it love. I didn't do it for revenge. I didn't even do it to be brave. I messaged him because I had to know what she wouldn't tell me. Because I couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Couldn't even brush my teeth without wondering how many times she'd kissed me with the same mouth she used to whisper to him. So, at 3:12 a.m., I opened her old phone again. She was asleep this time, or pretending to be. Her back to me. Her breathing just off enough that I knew she could hear the faint taps as I typed. I clicked into the thread, found the last message from Jonas. You looked like you meant it when you said you loved me. Was that a lie too? And hovered my thumb over the keyboard for what felt like hours. I didn't plan what to say. I just typed. This is her husband. I read everything. No response. For 10 minutes, nothing. I almost turned the phone off. Then 3 dots appeared. My heart stopped. He didn't say sorry. He didn't deny anything. He didn't even pretend to be confused. He just said, didn't mean for it to happen that way. That way. That way. Like their almost affair was some natural disaster. Like gravity pulled them together and I was just the collateral damage. She came to me first. You should know that. I sat back, the words stabbing deeper than any insult ever could. So she reached out. She found him. I was trying to hold on to a marriage, and she was auditioning escape routes. I should have stopped there. I should have blocked him, thrown the phone, yelled, something. But I asked another question. Because that's what I do. I hurt myself in slow motion. Did you sleep with her? This time, the dots danced longer. Stopped. started again, then vanished. Another minute passed before I got his final message. Not physically, but yeah, we crossed every line that mattered. And that's when something in me, something I didn't even know I had left, snapped. Not the loud kind of snap. Not the rage you see in movies where the guy punches a mirror or drives off into the night. This was quiet, cold, clinical. I stood up, walked to the living room, and took the wedding photo off the shelf. You know the one, framed in gold, overly edited, her smile just a little too wide to be real. I stared at it, at the version of her that promised forever, at the version of me that believed her. Then I turned it face down. When she woke up, she found me in the kitchen making eggs. Like it was any other Sunday. Like nothing happened. Like I wasn't already halfway out the door in my mind. She looked nervous. Hair messy. Makeup smudged from crying into the pillow or faking it. You didn't sleep again, she said softly. I flipped the egg. Nope. She sat at the table, clutching her mug like it would anchor her to the moment. And then she said it, the one line I'll never forget. I don't think I can be the wife you want. I turned to her, spatula in hand, and asked, did you ever try? She didn't answer, because we both knew the answer. That morning, I told her I needed space. Not a breakup, not a divorce, just space. She nodded too quickly, like she'd rehearsed it. And as I packed a bag to stay with my brother across town, she stood in the hallway and asked if I'd call her later. I didn't promise. And she didn't cry, because in her mind, I was still the guy who would always come back. But this time, I wasn't so sure. 3 days. That's how long it took before she stopped pretending to care where I was. At first, she texted like she was on a timer. Hope you're okay. Want to talk later? Still love you. I didn't respond. Not to punish her. I just didn't know what version of her I'd be replying to. The one who made me pancakes on our anniversary, or the one who told another man she loved him while I was asleep in the next room. By day 4, the text stopped. No calls. No questions. Like silence had finally become mutual. I stayed at my brother Wade's place. Not because we're close. We're not. He's the kind of guy who only speaks in 2-word answers and thinks therapy is for soft men, which made him the perfect person to be around. I didn't want comfort. I wanted numb. Wade didn't ask questions. He just handed me a beer and said, spare keys under the mat. Bathroom's yours. That was the deepest conversation we had all week. But late Thursday night, something changed. I got a call from an unknown number. I almost let it ring out, but something about the area code caught my eye. Same district as her office. I answered. Silence. Then a man's voice. Calm. Steady. Tired. Is this Milo? Yeah. Who's this? I work with Brenna. My name's Caleb. We've met once, I think. Christmas party 2 years ago. I vaguely remembered him. Tall, brown coat, talked too fast. She said he was harmless. Sorry to call. This is probably weird, he continued. But I thought you should know something. She left her work Slack open on the projector this morning. Didn't realize it was still casting to the client monitor. I felt my stomach drop. What exactly did it show? Another pause. I don't want to make anything worse, man. But someone messaged her. Jonas. And, there were some messages visible before she killed the screen. My throat tightened. What did they say? It wasn't the words. It was the tone. He said, tell me when it's safe again. She replied, it's not yet. But I'm working on it. My vision blurred. My head buzzed. I was shaking, but my hands were cold. Sorry, Caleb added quickly. I didn't know who else to tell. But I figured if it were me. No, I interrupted. Thank you. Really. I hung up. My phone slipped out of my hand and hit the floor, but I didn't pick it up. I just sat there in Wade's kitchen, lights off, staring at nothing, trying to make sense of what I had just heard. It's not yet, but I'm working on it. Not I'm sorry. Not it's over. Just a tactical delay. Like I was a problem she needed more time to solve before finally cutting me out. And that's when it hit me. She wasn't trying to fix us. She was managing him, keeping him close, feeding him just enough hope to make him stay quiet, just enough guilt to keep me confused. It was a strategy, and I was the idiot who thought it was a breakdown. At 2:10 a.m., I did something I hadn't done since college. I drove back to our apartment. Not to talk, not to scream, just to see. I parked across the street, turned off the engine, sat there in silence as the hallway light flicked on in our third-floor window. And then I saw it. A shadow, not hers, broader shoulders, longer hair, moving toward the balcony. He stepped outside, lit a cigarette, Jonas. He was standing on my balcony like he belonged there. I didn't take a picture. I didn't honk the horn. I didn't go upstairs. I just sat there, invisible behind the glass, watching a man I'd never met lean on the railing of the life I'd built, exhale smoke into the sky, and laugh at something I couldn't hear. And the worst part? I didn't even feel rage. Just hollow. Like I had already left the story, and the characters had moved on without me. I don't remember making the decision to go upstairs. 1 second, I was gripping the steering wheel like it was the last thing tethering me to reality, and the next, I was unlocking the front door to our apartment like it was still mine. It was 2:36 a.m. No lights on inside, just a faint glow from the TV in the living room. I didn't hear voices, didn't hear laughter or footsteps or the sound of clothes being thrown on in a panic. Everything was still. Too still. But the cigarette on the balcony railing was still burning. I walked inside quietly. Not like a husband coming home. Like a thief returning to the scene of his own robbery. The door creaked, but no one moved. I took a few steps in. And there she was, Brenna. Fast asleep on the couch. Curled in the corner under the gray throw blanket she always said smelled like my cologne. Her phone was in her hand, but her grip had gone limp. The screen dimmed as I approached. Jonas was gone. Or hiding. Or never there in the first place, and my brain was just playing a cruel trick on me. But then I noticed something. 2 mugs on the table. Both still warm. I walked past her, into the kitchen, and there was the proof. 2 bowls in the sink, rinsed but not washed. One still had a streak of tomato sauce clinging to the rim. I wasn't crazy. She'd had company. And not just company, comfort. She didn't hear me at first. Or maybe she was pretending. But when I opened the fridge and the light flooded the hallway, she stirred. Milo? Her voice cracked like it had been a year since she last used it. I didn't look at her. I just kept my eyes on the half-empty bottle of wine on the counter. I didn't think you'd come back, she said, sitting up. You didn't answer any of my messages. I saw Jonas, I replied. Silence. Not the kind that falls between 2 people. The kind that slams. She stood up slowly. Milo, he just dropped something off. That's it. He. Don't lie. I'm not lying. I turned to face her. Her hair was messy, her eyes swollen, mascara smudged like she'd cried and tried to cover it with foundation. But she wasn't crying now. She was watching me like a deer caught in the middle of deciding whether to run or fight. You don't get to pretend this is normal, I said. You don't get to sleep under my blanket, drink from our mugs, and serve another man pasta on my plates. She said nothing, just pulled the blanket tighter around her like that would protect her from the truth. I wasn't yelling. I didn't have it in me. I was beyond anger, in that cold, detached space where even grief feels like effort. I came here to get a few things, I told her. Clothes, documents, the hard drive with the photos from before you started rewriting everything in your head. Milo, you're not the victim here. She didn't argue. She just lowered her head. Not in shame, in strategy, like she was recalculating her next move. I turned and walked to the bedroom. And that's when I saw the envelope. It was sitting on my pillow. Thin. White. No name on it. But I knew it was for me. I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper. Typed. No handwriting. I need to be honest with myself before I can be honest with you. That was the first line. The rest was a confession. Not of physical cheating. Not yet. But of months of emotional abandonment. Of late-night meetings. Of almosts she justified in her head with phrases like we were already broken and you stopped seeing me. It was the most brutal letter I've ever read. Because it was honest. And honesty, when delayed long enough, feels like betrayal. When I finished reading, I folded the letter and placed it back on the bed. She stood in the hallway, arms crossed like she was cold. Or bracing for impact. I didn't give her one. You didn't write this for me, I said. Her lips parted. She didn't deny it. You wrote this to forgive yourself. And then I walked out. Not because I didn't want answers, but because I already had them. I thought healing would feel like a dramatic scene, like stepping outside and breathing for the first time. But it wasn't. It was quiet, awkward, uneven, like trying to remember how to walk with someone else's legs. I moved into a furnished 1-bedroom rental above a bookstore that always smelled like ink and rain. The walls were yellow. Not in a cheery way. More like the color had faded too long in sunlight and no one had bothered to repaint. But it was mine, and it was quiet. And for a man like me, that was a decent start. The first few days, I lived like a ghost. No music. No cooking. Just takeout boxes and the occasional beer I never finished. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. But I also didn't sleep. Not really. Then, out of nowhere, I started making the bed. Not because I cared about tidiness. I just needed one thing, to feel complete by the end of the day. Wade visited once. He stood in the doorway, looked around, and said, "Doesn't suck." That was his way of saying he was proud of me. Then he left me a six-pack and a roll of quarters for laundry, like I was a college freshman again. Therapy came next. I didn't tell anyone. Not because I was ashamed, but because I didn't want their approval. I needed someone to ask me the questions I'd spent weeks avoiding. "What do you want, Milo?" the therapist asked in the second session. And I couldn't answer, because I wasn't sure if I wanted her back, or just wanted to be the kind of man she would have never left in the first place. But then, on a random Tuesday, as I was throwing out junk mail and wiping sauce off the microwave, I saw it. A manila envelope. No return address. No handwriting. Just my name printed in clean black ink. I opened it cautiously. Inside was a printed transcript of text messages. Over 40 pages. My heart stopped. The first message at the top? "Jonas, do you think he suspects anything?" My knees nearly buckled. The pages weren't from Brenna's old phone. They weren't from the few scraps I'd seen on the screen that night. These were complete, unfiltered. Every conversation, every line, and not just during the time we were falling apart. No, this went back months. Back when I thought we were happy. Back when I was taking her to that art exhibit she pretended to love. Back when she kissed me and called me her anchor. There were messages from the day after our anniversary. "Brenna, he bought me earrings." I smiled. "I'm going to hell." "Jonas, you're not. You're surviving." "Brenna, he's not a bad man. He's just not the life I imagined." Every word hit like a brick. I kept reading. I couldn't stop. I wanted to, but I couldn't. "Jonas, so when do we stop sneaking around?" "Brenna, when I stop feeling like I owe him everything." When I finished the final page, I just sat there, surrounded by fragments of a reality I never knew I was living inside. And then I found one more item in the envelope. A photo. Grainy. Low quality. Probably taken from a distance. It showed Jonas and Brenna standing outside a cafe. Her hand was on his chest. His hand on the small of her back. She was laughing. That same tilted head laugh she used to do when I tried to tell jokes. The timestamp? 1 week before my birthday. The day she told me she'd been working late. I stared at the photo for a long time. And for the first time since this all began, I felt something sharper than grief. Clarity. Because now I knew. It wasn't just betrayal. It was choreography. Planned. Concealed. Executed. And someone anonymous, wanted me to see it. But why now? And why like this? Because that envelope didn't come from her. And it sure as hell didn't come from Jonas. I didn't sleep the night the envelope came. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I sat in that yellow-walled apartment with the photo in one hand and the transcript in the other, my coffee going cold beside me, my thoughts running in loops I couldn't untangle. Who sent it? Why now? What did they want from me? I checked every detail. There was no return label. No signature. Just a small, embossed mark on the back of the last page. WCL. At first, I thought it was a print shop. A watermark. Then I remembered something Wade said weeks ago, offhandedly, while half watching the news. Brenna's firm just picked up a new client. Wild Cedar Legal. Something about PR cleanup. Cheaters, lawsuits, that kind of mess. I looked it up. Wild Cedar Legal. Discreet legal and reputational support. I found a contact form on their site, buried under layers of corporate jargon. No phone number. No names. So I sent them a message. Nothing dramatic. Just one sentence. "I received something in the mail I think came from you. If it was meant to help, it did." 2 days passed. Then a reply. "Sometimes the people who need the truth the most are the ones least likely to look for it. You didn't deserve what happened to you. That's all we wanted you to know." There was no signature. No hint of who we was. But somehow, I didn't need to know. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about blowing up her life. It was about clarity. About giving me a mirror when I was still too broken to look at my own reflection. For the first time in months, I felt light. I didn't tell Brenna I knew everything. Not yet. What was left to say? The silence between us had already said more than enough. The final conversation would come, in time. But it would be calm. Clean. No shouting. No accusations. Just two people signing off from a story that had ended long before either of them admitted it. I spent the next few weeks rebuilding in small ways. I painted the walls white. I bought a plant and forgot to water it, but somehow it didn't die. I started playing guitar again. Badly, but enough to remember who I was before I spent so much time trying to be someone for her. And then one morning, I got a message from an unknown number. No words, just a photo. It was a dog, some awkward mutt with huge ears and too much tongue, flopped on a sidewalk with a tennis ball under his paw. The caption read, "He's not much to look at, but he'll never lie to you." No signature, just the same initials. WCL. I smiled. And for the first time in a long time, it wasn't bitter. It was real. That afternoon, I went to the shelter. I didn't find the dog from the picture, but I found another. One that wagged its tail when I walked by, then sneezed twice and flopped over like I'd already failed it, and it forgave me anyway. I took him home. Named him Charlie. He doesn't say much. Doesn't ask questions. Just curls up next to me while I drink coffee and try to remember that life still has soft places left in it. Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what you were never meant to keep. And sometimes what finds you after, in the quiet, in the in-between, is worth more than what you lost.